My parents took me on a dream vacation and never came back. They left me alone in a foreign country with nothing but a note that said, "You're 17, old enough to survive." I am Natalie. I was 17 when my parents took me to Greece. They said it was a reset trip. I'd been struggling, flunking math, fighting with girls at school, skipping classes. My mum told people I was just moody. My dad didn't say much. He never did, but when they surprised me with 2 tickets and said it'd be just the 3 of us, no siblings, no work calls, I let myself believe they meant it, that maybe this was their way of trying. The first few days were awkward but hopeful. We ate gelato by the water, visited ruins I didn't care about, took smiling photos for Facebook. My mum even held my hand while we waited in line for the ferry to Santorini. I remember thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe we're starting over. On the morning, everything changed. We were supposed to fly back to the US. We had breakfast together at the hotel buffet. My mum wore her coral lipstick, the one she only used for important days. My dad had his usual black coffee reading the paper without turning a page. Then, right before checkout, my mum turned to me and said, "We're just going down the street to get some souvenirs, be back in 15. I nodded, barely looking up. I was scrolling through my phone, trying to reply to my best friend, who'd been asking how the forced family bonding was going. An hour passed, then 2, then 4. I asked the hotel staff if they'd seen them. The clerk at the front desk frowned and said, "Oh, the couple from room 302. They already checked out this morning." The keycard no longer worked. I ran to the room. It was empty. My suitcase was gone. So was my passport. Even my backpack. Like I'd never been there at all. I called their phone straight to voicemail. Text didn't deliver. I started panicking, pacing the sidewalk, crying and calling again and again. A stranger stopped to ask if I was okay. I wasn't. I went to the US Embassy the next morning. Desperate and sleepless, a woman in a navy blazer and tight bun listened carefully, then tapped something into her computer after a long silence. She turned to me and said, "Your return flight was cancelled. Your name's no longer listed under their health insurance or emergency contact. I'm so sorry." It hit me all at once. Cold and sickening. They didn't just forget me. They removed me. They didn't leave me behind. They left me out that night. I walked back to the hotel lobby, hoping maybe there'd be a note or message, anything. The only thing waiting for me was in the pocket of my denim jacket, a small folded note. My mother's handwriting. "You're 17 now, old enough to survive." That's all it said. No apology, no explanation, just a sentence that sliced straight through me. I curled up behind a row of bushes outside a bakery and cried until I couldn't breathe. I didn't know how to get home. I didn't know if I had a home anymore. Somewhere in the distance, music played from a nearby cafe. A wedding. Maybe people, laughing, glasses clinking. A family that still wanted each other. I remember curling my fingers around my phone, staring at the last photo we took together. My parents smiling under a marble column. Me standing between them. We looked like a family. But the cracks were always there. I just hadn't seen them later. Much later, I'd remember flashes from the week before the trip. My dad sitting on the porch gripping an envelope. White, official looking with final notice stamped in red. My mom pacing in the kitchen, whispering too loud for it to be casual, and a night where they thought I was asleep. But I heard them arguing. "We can't take her with us," my mum had snapped. "She'll ruin everything. She's not a child anymore. She's barely holding it together. So are we?" I wanted to believe they were just venting, that it was stress a phase. But now, sitting alone in a country where no one knew my name, I realised the truth. They'd planned this. They didn't forget me. They erased me. I didn't sleep the first few nights. Not really. I camped behind a bakery near the edge of town. It had a metal trash bin that radiated just enough heat to keep the wind from cutting through me. I curled up with my jacket zipped to the chin and my arms wrapped around my stomach, listening to the sounds of early morning deliveries, glass bottles, clinking crates, Thutting men shouting in a language I barely understood. I counted breaths just to keep from crying. On the third morning, I got caught trying to steal a roll of bread left cooling on a tray by the back door. My fingers were numb, my mouth dry, and I didn't even hear the footsteps behind me until someone grabbed my wrist. I froze eyes wide, expecting police trouble. Deportation instead. A woman stared down at me. She had thick, silver hair pulled into a loose bun, flour dust on her apron, and eyes so sharp they seemed to cut through me. She didn't yell, didn't scold, just said, "If you're hungry, you work." Her name was Lucia. She was 68, ran the bakery alone, and had lived in that same apartment above it for more than 30 years. She let me wash dishes in the back mop. The floor carried sacks of flour I could barely lift that night. She handed me a folded blanket and pointed to a cot in the storage room. No explanation, no questions. It wasn't a bed, it wasn't warm, but it was safe. And in that moment, safe was everything. Lucia didn't ask about my family. She didn't need to. I think she knew days turned into weeks. I learned enough Greek to follow basic instructions. Scrub more flour. I copied her movements when she needed dough. Watched her eyes when she adjusted the oven temperature without ever looking at the dial. Sometimes she spoke to me in quiet sentences. Usually late at night while wiping the counter one evening while we were shaping loaves, she looked at my hands and said, "My daughter had hands like yours, always smelled like yeast, always too curious for her own good." I didn't ask what happened to her daughter. She never brought it up again. But from that night on, she started saving the misshaped loaves, the ones too ugly to sell. She left them wrapped in brown paper beside my cot, like it was a ritual. Like maybe she knew that love for someone like me needed to come in small, quiet pieces. I found a cracked laptop someone had thrown away behind a dumpster, spent hours fixing it with borrowed parts from a local repair shop, taught myself how to connect to public Wi-Fi, signed up for an online GED program. I studied by the back door, next to a fridge that hummed too loud. I did algebra homework while the scent of cinnamon and roasted sesame filled the air. Every time I got a quiz result back, I whispered the score under my breath like a prayer. I kept the jacket I wore the day my parents left, not because I wanted to, but because the note was still in the pocket, the one that said, "You're 17, old enough to survive." Some nights, I'd unfold it just to prove that I was surviving, that I was still here, that their words hadn't broken me, but deep down, I wasn't sure who I was. Without them, I wasn't a daughter anymore, not a student, not a citizen, even just a girl who washed dishes in a country that didn't know her name. And yet somehow I was still alive. The first time I made money that didn't smell like yeast or sweat. It came from a stock I barely understood. It was a small Greek shipping company. I'd read an article about their restructuring plan in a crumpled business journal. Someone left on a cafe table took a gamble, threw in the €200. I'd been saving for new shoes. It tripled in 2 weeks. That was the moment something shifted. Not in the world, but in me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was learning how to move. Lucia caught me one night with my laptop open and spreadsheets pulled up across the tiny back room. "You playing accountant now?" she teased. I shrugged. "Just curious." Truth was, I was doing more than that. I was obsessed. I devoured every free resource I could find online. YouTube lectures, translated business forums, and a scanned PDF of the essays of Warren Buffett. I found through a sketchy download link. I read it 3 times in 1 week, scribbled notes in the margins of old receipts. His voice became my background music while I scrubbed pans or rolled dough. I took bigger risks, some flopped others. Exploded by 20. I had clients by 22. I had investors. I registered a small consulting business under a translated name. Nothing flashy, just enough to look legitimate. Word spread. I helped local vendors, optimize supply chains, advised travelers on digital investments, and even created a short course for other undocumented young people looking to build income streams online. Lucia never asked how much I was making, but she noticed the changes. The new phone I bought her for Christmas, The espresso machine I quietly installed in the bakery, the way I paid off her gas bill without a word. One afternoon, she looked at me and said, "You walk different now, less like you're waiting for something to fall on your head." I laughed, but she wasn't wrong. I started sending money to youth shelters back in the States, anonymous donations, always especially to programs in Florida. I told myself it was just about giving back, but deep down, I think part of me wanted them to notice, to wonder who's helping these girls the way we didn't. I never posted about my work, never told anyone my full name. I didn't want attention, I wanted freedom, peace, a life that no longer needed to explain itself to people who threw it away. But even with all the progress, even with clients' money and the strange sensation of being respected, I still carried the girl from the bakery in my bones. She was quiet now, but not gone. She showed up in moments of doubt, in sleepless nights, before big decisions in the way. I still flinched when someone raised their voice too fast. I wasn't healed, I was building. And the thing about building from ashes is you remember every brick you lay, every scar it covers, every crack you had to fill with your own hands. So when the past came calling, when a certain address appeared in a foreclosure listing, I didn't hesitate, I booked a one-way flight home. It was Lucia who saw it first. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her morning coffee glasses low on her nose, flipping through an old stack of international newspapers someone had left at the bakery. She didn't even look up when she said it, just quietly slid the paper across the table and tapped her finger on a small black box in the bottom corner. "You recognize that address?" I stared at it. The street, the city, the zip code. I knew every number. I had memorized that mailbox growing up. The creaky screen door, the crack in the driveway. We were never allowed to step on. My parents' house in Florida, the one they bought after they left me, the one they swore up and down on social media, was their fresh start. Now it was in foreclosure. I sat back in my chair and let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. There's a moment that comes when the universe hands you the very thing it once tore from you. It doesn't feel like victory. Not at first, it feels like silence, like still water, right before a storm. I didn't tell Lucia what I was thinking. I didn't have to. She knew. We flew to Florida under business pretense. I went by my legal business name. A corporate identity I'd built over the years, clean, neutral, untraceable. The auction was held in a sunny parking lot outside a county building. The crowd looked like a Florida cliché, older men in pastel polos, investors with tablets, and retired couples in sun hats fanning themselves with brochures. No one looked at me twice. Lucia stood beside me, holding the bitter card. I whispered the numbers in her ear, and she raised the card with calm, practiced ease. No emotion, just business. The price climbed faster than expected. Someone else wanted the house too, a man in khakis and boat shoes, who squinted at us like we were in his way. Lucia didn't flinch when the final bid landed and the gavel hit wood. The auctioneer's voice rang out, sold to bidder. 173, Lucia lowered the card. Slowly, we didn't celebrate. We didn't even look at each other. We just stood there while the auctioneer moved on. And I let the reality wash over me. I owned their house, their living room, their fridge, their master bedroom with the window that faced the street, every inch of the life they tried to build, without me. It was now under my name. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel triumphant. What I felt was something colder, sharper. Control. A week later, they got the notice certified, male legal language. 30 days, they must have stared at it in disbelief, not knowing who bought the house, not knowing that the girl they abandoned at 17 had just signed the deed on their future. And I wasn't done. They asked for a meeting. Their lawyer called Lucia, thinking she was the new owner, said my parents were willing to negotiate and wanted to speak directly to whoever bought the house. I agreed. The meeting was set at a small real estate office on the edge of town, neutral territory, private. I arrived 10 minutes early, dressed in navy hair, Pulled back sunglasses are not hiding, just unreadable. They came in 2 minutes late. My mother entered first in a beige cardigan and oversized sunglasses, the kind meant to make you look fragile. My father trailed behind, holding a worn leather folder to his chest like it might protect him. They didn't recognize me. Not at first. They sat across the table, nodded stiffly and waited. I didn't say a word. I just reached up slowly and pulled off my sunglasses. My mother's face drained of colour. Her lips parted slightly like a word had gotten stuck in her throat. My father blinked twice, then looked down. Silence stretched thin and sharp between us. "You left me," I said, "in a foreign country with no money, no ID, no goodbye." My mother's hand twitched. We thought you'd hate us less if we just disappeared," she said, voice barely above a whisper for a second. I saw something real in her eyes. Not regret, fear, maybe even shame. But then it hardened like it always did. "You were impossible to live with always, dramatic, always fighting, we were drowning. You were dragging us down." I nodded once, slowly. "You were supposed to be the lifeboat," I said, "not the ones who throw people overboard." My father still hadn't looked up, say something. I told him, look at me and say, "It wasn't your choice." He opened his mouth, closed it. His hands tightened around the folder. "Your mother thought." I don't care what she thought. He flinched. "You didn't even try to stop her," I said. "You let her erase me." His voice, when it finally came, was dry and brittle. "I didn't think you'd survive." I stood up, calm, controlled. "Well, I did, and now I own the house you live in." My mother blinked. "Once you're bluffing." I slid the signed deed across the table. Her hands hovered over it, trembling. Lucia stepped in from the hallway, then clipboard in hand, face unreadable. She nodded at them, professional and cold. "We'll need the keys within 30 days, she said. "You'll receive the official move-out timeline tomorrow." My mother looked between us like she was waking up from a bad dream. "You can't do this. We're your parents." I stared at her. "No, you were my parents, and you made your decision." She started to cry. Not real tears. Not at first. It was the performance she'd always leaned on when things got messy, the fragile, wounded mother act. But I didn't move. Lucia placed a small envelope in front of her. "These are the legal instructions," she said. "We suggest you read them thoroughly." My father still hadn't spoken again. His eyes were glassy, now lost, but I didn't feel sorry for him. Not anymore. I turned to leave. "Wait," my mother said. "Why now, after all these years?" I paused at the door, "because I needed to see your faces. When you realized I didn't need you to come back, I just needed you to know." I came back, and then I walked out. They posted about me online, called me a liar, said I was brainwashed, said I showed up out of nowhere, heartless and vindictive, and stole their home. I didn't respond. Lucia asked if I'd seen the posts. I had let them talk. I told her, "I'm too busy building something real." We converted the house within 4 months. The yellow siding got a fresh coat of paint. The cracked tile in the kitchen was replaced with soft oak laminate. We tore down the old live laugh love signs and replaced them with shelves of books, framed photographs and soft blankets folded on every chair. We turned their master bedroom into a shared dorm space. 2 bunk beds, new mattresses, lavender pillows, a lockbox for every girl to store her own things. Lucia called it the second door, because for some people, the first one never opened. She started teaching again, baking classes every Wednesday. Her students were girls like me, too young to be alone, too old to be anyone's responsibility. She taught them how to knead dough, how to trust their own hands, how to fail without quitting. We hosted our first open house in spring. 6 girls showed up that week. 2 were silent. 1 wouldn't make eye contact. Another cried when we gave her clean socks. Lucia just smiled and said, "Let them breathe. The rest comes later." That night, I stood in what used to be my parents' backyard. The air smelled like warm sugar and lemon soap. The porch light was soft and golden inside. Someone was playing music through a cracked phone. Speaker. Laughter drifted out the window. Real laughter, loud, unapologetic. Lucia stepped beside me, holding a mug of tea. "Still feel like you don't have a home?" she asked. I looked around. I saw light in every window, shoes by the door. A girl brushing her hair in the hallway mirror. Another curled up on the couch. Finally asleep, and "I knew this isn't just a home," I said. "It's where we all begin again. If you think this is wild, so far, just wait until you hear what I said when they begged me for mercy. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and let's dive into this story of betrayal, survival, and the comeback they never saw coming.